A woman was visibly unable to care for herself on an MRT train. Two strangers claimed they were helping her home. What followed shows why apparent assistance should never be accepted without basic checks. A 40-year-old Bangladeshi worker, Alam Faisal, pleaded guilty on July 17th to raping the woman near Tuas West Road MRT station. The incident happened in March 2022. Faisal and his coworker, Ahmed Rehan, were taking the last train back to their dormitory after drinking with a friend. They noticed the 32-year-old Singaporean woman in a nearby carriage. Court documents described her as heavily intoxicated. She was walking unsteadily, sitting on the floor, and struggling to communicate. The men approached her before guiding her off the train at Tuas West Road. Station staff noticed the group because the woman had difficulty passing through the fare gate. Faisal told them that they had met her on the train and were taking her home because she lived nearby. That explanation was not true. After leaving the station, the woman tried to walk away. Faisal followed her and directed her towards an area under the Tuas Viaduct. He later sexually assaulted her while she was incapable of giving meaningful consent. Rehan was also involved and had already been sentenced in 2024 to 9 years in prison and 9 strokes of the cane. The two men left the woman behind and returned to their dormitory by taxi. Around 5 hours later, a migrant worker passing through the area found her in distress. He sought help from others, gave her some water, and called an ambulance. Police arrested Faisal and Rehan later that evening after tracing their movements through CCTV cameras near the station and their dormitory. Faisal's sentence will be decided at a later date. The charge carries a possible punishment of up to 20 years in prison, along with a fine or caning. The legal principle in this case is clear. Consent requires a person to understand what is happening and to make a free choice. Someone who is severely intoxicated may be unable to provide that consent. Silence, confusion, or a lack of physical resistance does not automatically mean agreement. But the case also raises a wider public safety question. Station staff noticed that something was wrong. They saw a vulnerable passenger struggling at the fare gate. They were then given a story by people who had only just met her. This does not mean the staff were responsible for the crime. The offenders were responsible for their own actions. However, it shows how easily someone can appear to be a helpful friend or relative when there is no independent way to confirm the relationship. A simple welfare check could involve speaking directly to the vulnerable person, asking for identification, contacting a family member, or requesting help from the police when the situation looks unsafe. Such checks must be handled carefully. Not every intoxicated passenger requires police intervention, and genuine helpers should not automatically be treated as suspects. The challenge is finding a sensible balance between respecting personal freedom and protecting someone who cannot properly protect themselves. There is another important point. One migrant worker was responsible for committing the offense, but another migrant worker stopped to help the victim and called for medical assistance. Nationality does not explain behavior. Individual choices do. Turning the case into a judgment about an entire community would distract from the real issues: consent, accountability, and the protection of vulnerable commuters. Public transport systems are designed to move large numbers of people efficiently, yet late-night travel creates situations where staff may have only a few moments to decide whether someone is merely tired, intoxicated, or in genuine danger. CCTV helped investigators identify the offenders after the crime. The deeper question is whether stronger intervention could sometimes prevent harm before it happens. In my view, the lesson is not that strangers should stop helping one another. It is that assistance involving a person who cannot communicate clearly should be transparent. Help should happen in visible areas. Staff should be informed. A relative, ambulance, or police officer should be contacted when necessary. That protects the vulnerable person. It also protects genuine helpers from misunderstanding. When someone is too impaired to explain who they are with or where they are going, should public transport staff have clearer rules requiring additional checks? Share your view in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to 2230.